series that demystifies design and the future of everything. It is our pleasure to have you here with us. Please welcome Kanan and Marius Patrick.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for the kind introductions. And Elizabeth, Sal, Lord, for the ride from the airport. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the smiling faces and the fun conversations this afternoon. It was good to meet so many new faces and see many older ones. And Dean Oliver, thank you for giving us your house to hang out in. Phenom and I are very casual in kind of what we do and how we approach a lot of things. So we're gonna just kind of rip off each other, talk through some of the processes and the way we look at the world and the studio we built over time.
Let's start with a little history. Since you're students, let's talk about how we got into industrial design. So I grew up in France, lived there for 22 years of my life, and then moved to Denmark for 1 year, and then the US twice, the first time I got married legally. And then 16 years ago, I moved to Houston, Texas. And I met Marius 24 hours after I landed. It was not love at first sight. And yeah, so before I moved to Houston, I had studied industrial design, both undergrad and grad in France at Strat, which is a school that's known for car design. So all my friends are car designers. And Design School in Holden, which is in Western Denmark, is right next to the town where I lived. And so after that, spent a lot of times in agencies, worked at One in Austin, that one existed briefly, and then moved to Santa Barbara. Yes, there's design in Santa Barbara. One studio called Lifestyle Design. I was there for 4 years, and then after that moved to San Francisco about 10 years ago, where I worked at Lunar, worked at IDEO, worked at Herbst product down in Santa Cruz, at Matter, which became Enlisted, yeah, all of the studios. So my career is mainly in agency because I like to change things up. But besides design, I like all the aspects of it. I like the business of design as much as I like design itself. And that led to a natural transition into nonfiction.
Yeah, my career path has not been too dissimilar from Phenom's. Met in Houston, again, not love at first sight, but we kept hanging out with each other and actually enjoying each other's company. Phenom's H-1B visa was expiring, and I'm like, I'm not ready to let go. Will you marry me? And she said, what? Well, I didn't think about getting married either. So I asked her again. English wasn't so good back in the day. And she says, what? Third time was a charm. We got married, started having a blast. As Phenom said, went to Austin for the place called ID1, Santa Barbara. I started my own company doing 2 years out of school. I was telling Miles earlier that 2 years out of school, I got really lucky. Somebody invested in me and said, hey, let's build a company together. I was way too young to really be doing things I was doing. They gave me 20, 30 trips over to Asia to manufacture things from speakers, earbuds to phone cases, all kinds of stuff, satchels. Really valuable experience. And I think that's what really kind of launched my career. When we got to San Francisco, worked for Lunar, Ammunition, Matter, Herbst, Native, all these consultancies. And like Phenom, I really enjoyed that consultancy lifestyle. It's like things are moving fast. You gotta hustle or die. We hustled a lot. Strange story, how we actually started Nonfiction. Phenom and I were both freelancers all over the city. And then we get a phone call. that says, hey, we have a project. Do you want to come in and, you know, show your portfolio, interview for it? And we're like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Thinking that we would go in individually and show our portfolios. So we get in the studio and they say, okay, let's see your portfolios at the same time. So we're literally sitting next to each other, showing our portfolios and like kind of competing for this job. Not cool, I'm married. You know, like one of us is going to get hurt in this situation. Turns out they liked us both and said you're both hired. So we worked on a project for Intel, in fact, knocked it out of the park. I'm happy to say Intel's now our client, so they're still happy. But the interesting part about this is we never really worked together much, maybe slightly overlapped on a small project until that happened. So it's somebody else's fault. We have a studio together, so we want to think that company, you know, met, right? But it's these weird kind of accidents that happen that craft your career, and sometimes you're not.
And to remind everyone that I did not know, my study industrial design here in Houston. I did not. I studied space architecture. Yeah, Carolina. All right, so let's start with our company. We call it nonfiction because we turn science fiction into reality for the future. That is what we do as a business. We're not just an industrial design firm. We're not just a space architecture firm. It's a little bit of everything. And here is a little bit of a breakdown of the disciplines that we practice at Nonfiction. Strategy, you know, brain strategy, product strategy, things like that. Industrial design, from concept all the way to manufacturing, basically. Branding, because some of the startups that we're working with need that. Space architecture, engineering. So we practice mechanical, electrical, engineering. Some of these people who practice that are within Nonfiction, and some of them are strategic partners. And then systems design, everything that sounds very big, complicated, and difficult to start. This is our team. 12 people coming from like, I don't know, 8 countries. Very multinational, international team. Everybody has a very interesting story. Everybody has had 2 or 3 careers. We like to hire people like this. Right? Anybody who's cookie cutter, has like one thing they're good at, and then are not actually doing anything else, can't work for us. So so super awesome team. Most of them are in San Francisco, some of them are in Canada, Austin, North Carolina. That's it. And yeah.
Told you we rip off one another. But one of the interesting things about this, why we have such a diverse team, is it was on purpose. We saw a lot of studios that were doing a great job, but they were just, it was a bro culture, doing the same old crafting of like consumer electronic products. It was everybody studied ID. A lot of people haven't traveled the world or seen different cultures, spoken different language. And when you start to mix that up, you change perspectives, you understand other cultures better. You change up, and look, we've got a diverse of like gender, personality, experience, fashion designers. We've got, an Emmy award-winning film producer on our team. She's amazing at telling stories. So I think so much of that is about just, changing it up and allowing diversity to be part of your story.
And why that's important is because we have clients all over the world. We currently have clients on 4 continents, and we're working on 6 in 2022. That means that we need to understand the cultures quite deeply and really design for them, rather than exporting the way we think about design and something like that. Because that very much only works for North America. This is the type of companies we work for, so you can recognize a lot of technology companies, space companies, healthcare companies, a lot of things having to do with biotech, and engineering companies as well. I would say that about half of our work actually comes from engineering firms because we like to work with this. Okay, so a brief history of nonfiction. So nonfiction started as is classic industrial design firm. We're like, bringing in clients who wanted us to design essentially the enclosure of the products they were developing. And we're like, well, that's boring. So in 2017, we got really hard into human factors and really understanding the extremes around the head, around the ear, around the wrist, around the way people sit in tests, right? In 2018, that's when we got really deep into what's called transformational technology, which is technology in support of health, wellness, longevity, and performance. In 2019, we focused really strongly on education and social impact. In 2020, we included mobility and space exploration. That's when we came back to space and had a 12-year hiatus. And in 2021, we went all in with sustainability and accommodation. And we're trying to figure out at this point what we're going to do. But as you can see, our company is evolving year after year. We need to look back at the year we were before and say, oh, look at that. That wasn't cool, right? That's how you know you're moving things around, right? When you trust that things are moving in the right direction. So this is what I want to talk about.
So 3 requirements to work with Nonfiction. We have been lucky enough where, as you saw that previous slide, we're working through just basic, we've evolved our thinking about what we do and how we do it. We're a little bit particular about who we want to work with. We don't just make widgets. We're not putting stuff in landfills. We want to be first to market and everything, right? We don't want to make another router. We want to make something special. We want to make something that transforms lives and makes impact. And speaking of that, we want to satisfy at least one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This is really important. And honestly, if you're not doing that, that's a problem because there's 17, you should be tackling something. And we want to turn design into reality. We don't want to get stuck in concepts. We've seen a lot of studios do that, and they make beautiful concepts, Instagram worthy, but never go anywhere. We want to make it part of our mission to bring real products to life with impact under certain sustainable goals. So when we talk about that, we also talk about sort of the diversity of the culture of the people over here. We also talk about sort of this this unifying theme that has to happen. We don't just design products. We have to engage all those different aspects. It's not just engineering. We talk about business. Business enables change. Design. We foster connections between all the other industries. This is our job. Art. It triggers emotion. We talk about technology. Technology is going to be that stuff that's going to create the possibilities. In science, it validates magic. So, and I think these words and description are really important to create meaningful innovation. If you're just designing, you're just sculpting. You need to step well beyond that. Be that unifying element as designers. We speak better and to more industries than anybody else. We have to be the glue that connects them all to the world.
Right, a little description of how at Nonfiction we see the definition of good design, right? It's different for everyone. The super high level, to us, it's the perfect balance between appearance, value, and function in order to make things relatable, meaningful, and useful. Right? And there are just different aspects of all of this that we look at. This is kind of an example of how you can apply this. So when it comes to appearance, we need to think about market fits, aesthetics and trends, branding, whether we want to disrupt or not, and is it intuitive, just by the way it looks. In terms of function, we need to think about reliability. So working very closely with engineers, durability, same thing. Ergonomics, we go very, very deep into what that means, user experience and pleasure. In terms of value, what stakeholders are you working for? Users or purchasers, which might be 2 different people. The companies we're working for are the partners because we want them to be successful so they come back to us. The future of an industry, which is very relevant in the work we do in fiction, humanity as a whole, or the planet. So these are 6 questions that we put all of our clients through, right? If they cannot answer these 6 questions on the first day, we don't go to them. These questions are so incredibly important. Like if you're thinking about getting a tattoo, this is it. So every time before you design your first line, you draw your first line on a piece of paper, you have to ask yourself, why should this exist? And if you don't have a clear answer, rethink it. Right? What are we saying? Do you want to design something that says 30 million things or just 1 or 2 things? Where does it live? Be very honest about it. Don't speculate or make assumptions about how people live in your ideal world. People live a certain way and ask the right questions. Who is it serving? Right? A lot of times, we hear about the end user. Sure, they're important, but who are you living with? Who's making money on this? Why is this project even existing? You have to satisfy all these people. How does it become real? What are the steps necessary for this idea to become real? Is it money? Is it time? Is it a team? Is it expertise? You kind of have to line that up as you design. Otherwise, it's just an idea. Then finally, when will it be impactful? If you design something and you're not even thinking about impact on day 1, then again, just an idea. All right, so we're going to jump into images at this point. It's going to be very visual. I'm going to start with this. So this is the first audio headphones without a mic, human headphones. We designed them a few years ago, and it was very difficult to design. It doesn't look like it, right? Imagine attaching 2 pieces like this to your ears. If you look at everybody's ears, just look around. Big ears, fat ears, small ears, with ears, uneven ears, all. So when you design something that has to be mass manufactured and look this clean, that's very difficult, right? We want something that was well balanced, that was inspired by nature, really, kind of like an extension of the body, right? And we'll also look at the nature of nature. Nature doesn't have buttons. Nature doesn't have LED lights just blinking every few seconds. Nature doesn't have wires coming out of the entire thing. So we wanted the behavior around the headphones to be natural as well. So no buttons on this thing. If you want to control the volume, you just slide your finger on the outside. It uses capacitive touch technology. There are 2 clips that are designed in a very complicated way. It doesn't look like it. To give you an idea of how complex this was, it took 700 prototypes to do it. Yes, we modeled all of them. And we had to do this this process of 3D modeling. We did that in Alias, which was really easier to manipulate the surfaces. And then we 3D printed overnight and then tested on people. We did that 700 times. And the reason we did that is because we wanted a geometry that was made out of mainly hard materials that fits more than 90% of human ears, adult human ears. And so we ended this process after we were able to do enhancement with these headphones. Another thing that was very challenging about this project is fitting components. So components kind of look like this. Right? It's a lot of cylinders and a lot of like square things. And if you include all of that into a geometry that's like very swoopy and organic, it's very complex. So we had to work very, very closely with the mechanical engineering team, as well as the electrical engineering team, the acoustic team, and making sure that everything not only functioned well, but also was well balanced. Right? Because it's on the ear, it's hanging off the ear, you have to think about the center of gravity of this product. So we have to move things around to make sure that that works. Next project.
I think something that Benon said was really interesting, working with all the different teams, acoustical engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. That happens all the time when you're in corporations. We're consultancy. We do designs. Typical consultancies hand it off. And we watched as we were doing all that work with all the other teams we worked with before we started Nonfiction. We realized, 90% of those products never made it to market, and that was part of our goal. We're like, we got to, we want to see products come to market too. So we started bringing in the engineers. We overlapped the engineers early in the process. corporation or our own engineers, and what's called new product development. It's just the overlapping of disciplines that allows us to move confidently forward much faster. Most consultancies don't do that. They design the handoff. This is a big thing when you get into your own careers. You know, think about that conversation between all the different disciplines. So this is Calatrio. Calatrio is a really interesting project in that it was probably our second medical product where we were out to solve some ergonomic problems with people that suffer from essential tremors. So it's a wrist-worn wearable. And if you haven't, you might have seen a lot of older folks suffer from what's called essential tremors, where their hands might shake. This is not exclusive to older people. This is also happens to younger people as well. Well, we're working with Cala to develop a company that develop a product that uses electricity as medicine. It's canceling out the wavelength in the nerves that causes essential tremor by stimulating the medial or radial nerves around the wristband, which is first off a really, really cool technology that we didn't develop, but we got to work with the team developing it. What we did develop is make sure that goes on your wrist. Not as easy as a wristband when you have electricity going in there. You don't want to shock people. You want to apply it there. Also not easy is when you have somebody who has extreme essential tremors and you're trying to put this on the wrist, it's hard. So what we did is we started doing a lot of user studies, sitting in with the Cala team developing it, and we figured out we partially wrap the band, have a semi-hard portion of the band that when they put it on the wrist, it goes on easier. It's not that floppy watch that falls off. So we're helping them now get it on. We also sat in a usability study, whereas something as simple as charging your wristband, you know, for us, we just drop it on the charger, no big deal. For them, it's a huge deal. They're trying to target and they can't hit this charging head. So we started doing these little things where like we interviewed this guy and he was so frustrated, he couldn't charge his wristband, thereby couldn't get his therapy. We went back to the drawing table, changed the form factor of the charging bit so it's curved in. It's got what we call a gross targeting and a narrow targeting that's really pulled in by magnets. And there's a lot more details in that, but when we went back to the user study, and same gentleman, called level 10, he was just off the charts. He did this, and the first time he went to charge his device, it snapped into place and instantly went to charge it. What was cool, in a weird way, when the schools started crying, he was so moved by it. He said, wait, where'd you get this idea? Why'd you do that? And so we sat with you last time, and we could see how frustrated, just like you said, you did that for me? Yeah. And it just, that moment when you see you change people's lives is a really, really good feeling. All right, so I'll keep talking about this. So we do a lot of work with neurostimulation, a lot of work with neuroscience, things like that. If I asked most people where their motor cortex is, nobody knows, right? But if I ask an athlete if they want to perform better, you know, learn new skill faster, you know, run, fight, compete with the competitors even at a higher level, and everybody says, yes, I want to do that. So what we were challenged to do is create a neurostimulator that goes over the motor cortex to allow athletes to perform better and to shave up to 40% off their learning process. So imagine we compete for Olympics, you want to get ahead of the next guy. Well, we stuck it inside of a set of headphones. And underneath the headband is the stimulator that applies electricity, again, serve as a therapeutic thing over the motor cortex so they can learn a skill faster, so they can train faster. And what's nice is it's aligned with the user story. People are training with music all the time. They're learning, they're listening to music, keeping on rhythm and stuff. It also applies to piano players. Anybody that's using the hand skills a lot, their motor skills, they can use these headphones.
One of those things was really fun. So firefighters, they've been very busy in California.
Yeah.
So what we designed here is that we created this AR mask that fits into a firefighter mask. And what it does is that it allows these firefighters to see through smoke. So on the left side is typically what they see, on the right side is what they see with this technology. So you see the edges of everything, the edges of humans, the edges of walls, stairs. So we actually tested that on firefighters in California, and they were able to shave 15 to 20 seconds off of the time it takes them to pull out a family out of the scene. That can save lives, right? So using technology in the right place at the right time, right, is pretty important. So this uses 5G technology, so AR lens on the inside of the mask, the thermal camera on the outside of the mask, have those two things talk to each other and make this product. So it's pretty amazing to see how technology can change people's lives this way. So you can see them here trying it out. Great. So again, a lot of 3D printing here, a lot of like negotiating with engineers left and right. What can we fit inside of a mask? What has to be on the outside? What can be protected from the heat? And what cannot? And also the cost of things, right? And one thing that's very important about firefighters is that because their lives are on the line all the time, it's very hard for them to trust technology. So as we are developing all of this, we have to keep them in the room. We have to check in with them and say, hey, are you comfortable trusting our technology into doing this? Is it actually bringing something to the way you practice firefighting? So it's been pretty positive.
So much of what we do is behavior change, right? You said early on that one of those 3 points that we like to do is bring new things to market. That is our whole life. Bring life-changing things, impactful things. But like when you have first responders trying to change their mind, they know ladders works, hose work, a gas mask works. Putting AR that they have to depend on. So there's a lot of these challenges that we have to deal with. And that includes even the interaction, simple button interactions. We call it, we design things that are hard to get wrong. We're trying to make sure everybody is able to make the behavior change as easily as possible.
So another brain simulator, we do a lot of those. We've become specialists in simulating the brain into doing whatever you want. So sleeping better. Who's here sleeps well, like very well? Is the best sleeping? Wow. Congratulations. Good for you. For everybody else, this product that we designed for Philips helps you get good quality deep sleep. So there's a stage in your sleep cycle called deep sleep. That is the part where your brain cuts out extra information so you can rest well and be alert the next morning. So yeah, this product is something that you put on. It's cut and sew, comfortable. You can sleep with it all night. It reads the brain and stimulates it at the same time. Yeah, it's pretty fun. So people have been getting better quality sleep thanks to it. That's always good to see that. There was an article from the New York Times that linked that quality sleep to early Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's getting worse. So hopefully we solve this problem with products like this that cost about $350. We recently did another project for sleep, but this one we had more control over design because when you work with things like that. So this one we're like, we'll do whatever we want. So what we wanted to do is really go deep into what sleep is and what it means and what kind of form factor it should have, right? So really thinking about calming landscapes and gradients and soft materials, integrating materials like silk. The silk is luxurious. It feels good on the skin. It feels good in the back. It helps you fall asleep. So this device is actually coming soon. It's a brain stimulator that also reads the brain waves, and it doesn't tackle deep sleep. The really cool thing about this technology is you can have all the worst sleep habits in the world. You can put Facebook on and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. It still works. So yeah, working with neuroscientists that are doing like cutting edge stuff like this and trusting us to turn this technology into products that people can buy. Again, $200-300 is going to be pretty amazing. And all of this is non-invasive, right? You don't have like mutations to take, and side effects, and opening. Really, that's related. This one is something that you use as you know as you like, and people are getting amazing results from it. I mean, with even met users who got amazing results with using it twice. So, you know, again, like the inspiration of nature, natural materials, silk, cotton padding instead of foam, getting the inspiration from the mountains and the rivers, because our human brains calm down when we are around nature. That's just a natural thing for most of us, right? And including that in the way we design everything in our lives, it can be pretty impactful.
I do want to point out that somehow we become experts in neuro stimulation, all kinds of things. And it's a really kind of funny landscape to walk because we have to make sure we're not overlapping technology or NDAs or competing technologies all the time. So far, we're still having a lot of fun doing cool things. The two sleep projects you just saw are years apart in different technologies. So again, walking that research edge. So, you know, clinical depression is a big deal, as you guys can all imagine. And we know that a lot of the key to it is deep inside the mind. It's not just, environmental aspect, it's also chemical aspects, it's also learned behavior. We're working with a scientist as we speak, a doctor as we speak, to help patients get over deep depression. We're also looking at PTSD by using ketamine in conjunction with a virtual reality sort of environment that we're designing. We did not design the ketamine, but we have a lot of fun with the virtual environment, right? We can't show the whole experience right now, but this is sort of the basics of it. We created this environment over 6 different stages, and what we found out with the doctors, first, it's like a journey through life and healing mentally, right? But taking the ketamine, it allows you to rewire the brain through plasticity. Plasticity meaning that your brain's like a muscle. The more you exercise it in one direction, the more you might be depressed. Like using ketamine and visuals, you might be able to change how the brain looks at the world or reacts to external stimuli or internal, and then you rewire it. It's called the plasticity of the mind. So we're creating 6 different virtual environments where the patient puts it on. First 2 is dealing with the past. What got them here in the first place? So it has a journey, and without going through all the visuals, the second 2 is dealing with the present. How do we do this? And the third one is looking at the future. So hope. When we figured out over 6 sessions of ketamine, we can kind of reset the mind. Why virtuality besides like guiding clinical true? They also, when you're on ketamine, a lot of people thought they were dying. It's very strong. You don't want people with depression having that feeling. So putting a mask on was the first thought. Putting a mask on with virtual reality, going through a beautiful storyline, actually brings them back into a place of comfort and progression where they can go through the 6 stages of process. All right. Well, you guys might recognize this guy. We got to work with the sons and daughters of Bob Marley. This was a number of years ago, but we keep it in the portfolio because it's such a cool project, and you can still buy products that we designed 12 years ago, I think, something like that. So what happened was they came to us and said, hey, look, we want to take advantage of our dad's name and let's make some music products and let's have some fun. We're like, yeah, let's do it. And we don't want trash Bob Marley's name. I mean, it was all about one love. He was all about giving back to his community, giving back to the world. He's basically one of the early sustainable people thinking about ecology and all that. So we said, let's do it in a way that makes sense in a few different ways. Let's design products that have a strong material story, right? Not just plastic. Let's do it in a way that the acoustic products that we make are very much in line with the music that reggae music, strong bass, tight percussions. And, at the time we were doing this, Beats was coming out, Ludacris was coming out with their headphones. You worked on Ludacris, right? We wanted to make the sound specific for reggae. And so we did. We worked with the acoustic engineer guy in products. We wrote the next line. And so Rohan Marley, he would come in and be like, "Come on, yeah, I love the music." And smoking the J, right? You couldn't at the time, but if you're Rastafari, you couldn't. But anyway, we designed all the products with more of a ecological mindset. We can use plastic all over the place as much as possible. Try to reduce the plastic. We use this is modeled after the idea of the skateboard kit. It's plywood, right? And it's canvas lower half. This is a boom box. Yeah, this is a boom box. Sorry, this is a boom box. Next slide. When we went to here, we started creating the trade show for Marley. This is at the Consumer Electronics Show, hundreds of thousands of people back when it was going on. And we built an environment that was very natural, easy, approachable, human, not digital. It's digital. You don't need to shout it. Let's have the experience stand up front. So every day at the end of the show, we have the reggae, the DJs come in and just bounce music. And we won 2 years in a row. We won best trade show booth in all of CES and most entertainment or something like that. When it came back to the material story, everything was designed recyclable aluminum, FSC certified woods, as little plastics as possible, soy-based foods. And if you go on the website today, you can actually see the material story. And this is kind of what it looks like. They're still talking about it years later. I guarantee you, if we didn't tell a really good story to the people that want these products, if we just said, yeah, let's do this, one, the products probably wouldn't be on the shelf anymore. Two, they wouldn't have such a strong following. And, building their sustainable story, telling it to the brand that wants to, corporate brand, whoever wants to build these things, becomes a really, really important part. And I like that because now they're stuck in sustainability. They're stuck with good materials and do better for the planet. And they never would have done it if we didn't tell a really good story. So we win. The packaging also. Soy-based eggs, everything's cardboard as much as possible. Again, no plastic in the packaging. We're
So you can disassemble all of these parts just by pulling on the sugar parts. So it's very much part of the design. Another thing about Marley is that every time you buy products, is to their plant. So giving back to community, to parents as much as we can. So we started working with the continent of Africa a couple of years ago, and it's been amazing. So this started with designing just generic speakers. Actually, the way we started working with this company is very fun. They came to us and they're like, "Hey, you would design something like a Google Home." Buy Google Home? Like what? What do you want to just design the same thing? And so they started, wanting to develop speakers because African sound, has a certain tone to it. Like there's a warmth to it. I mean, depending on what kind of music, what kind of region, of course. But we started again, like Marley, studying a lot of what kind of music is appropriate for what kind of sound or culture, working with acoustic engineers and fine-tuning all of that. But the project became much, much larger because we realized that a lot of these people could not have access to the music from the phone or from whatever devices they had because of lack of access to the internet. So this project became a speaker that gives you access to the internet anywhere in the world. So there will be more on this. It's getting a lot of publicity right now. There's like this band from South Africa called Black Diamond that we're working with is going to help us develop this product. So very excited about this, because access to the internet in remote places is going to help with more access to information, access to education, access to healthcare. So really looking forward to all of this happening into something great. But one thing about this design is that, we didn't want to exports Silicon Valley's proportions on materials and things like that. So really looking at the colors that are prominent in those homes. So we have green one, black one themselves. We have for North Africa, we have something different that's a little bit more along the colors of sand. So and also there's like particles in the air that make things a little bit, you know, less sharp. And we wanted to that to be visible in the product. So now we'll show you a lot of projects having to do with industrial design, the product of, you know, manufactured products. Now we're going to move a little bit more into systems design. So when COVID happened a couple of years ago, we got bored. So we're like, hey, what do we not like in the world? And we didn't like flying. Flying was horrible. It's getting worse and worse. We have like less and less leg room and things are just like, you know, services is the bare minimum. You have to pay for every extra convenience that you want. And it's awful, right? So, you know, like thinking about the same architecture of an airplane, how can we redesign what's inside to fit our needs is what we start thinking about. So, you know, lounging areas, perhaps around the bathroom, could be created to facilitate all of this. You know, for long haul flights, you know, before COVID, we had to go to Singapore, Japan every month, and that was awful. So where do you sleep when you get some rest? You know, when you can't afford first class, for example. So maybe these, you know, stackable areas where you can take like 31-hour naps could be useful. Also, having less flight attendants working in each airplanes and getting more help from robotics could be helpful as well. Because if you have less people working in, then you spend more money on robots. This is the kind of robot that could, you know, provide water or drinks on the way in the flights. Thinking about bathrooms as well. Why can't bathrooms be more like spas rather than these awful places where you don't want to touch anything, right? Bringing back pleasure in flights. You know, why don't we have bars again? It was fun back in the 60s. You know, working environments that really, you know, create this clean environment and also a little bit of privacy, but also makes it comfortable. And when we think about the future, you know, we're going to have, you know, Zoom calls and phone calls and all that up in the air. So how do we create essentially phone booths that allow us to do that? So now let's jump into space. You know, we're thinking about hospitality in an airplane. We'll also have to think about the hostility of space. When you go to the moon, everything's gray. Everything. Every rock, like the sky is black. Once again, you see the earth, it shows you blue and white. But really, everything is gray. And the thing about humans is that we don't like living in black and white, right? Back on TVs about black and white, like, how do we get how is it? This is kind of like a fun project that we did internally where we wanted to integrate color in the way we quote unquote colonize the world, right? And the way we want to do it is by taking advantage of subsurface structures called lava tubes. Lava tubes are structures that are both on the moon and Mars, and they're like pretty big diameter structures that protect you very well from radiation as well as temperature shifts. Because on the surface, it's pretty extreme, and materials are we have a hard time, you know, staying on. So we created this like multi-story building that's going to support people who live on the moon for months at a time, miners or anybody who's going to work in the world. So really think about the interior and what kind of space is going to support physically and emotionally the people who are going to be living on the moon, right? As everything is underground on top of being on the gray moon, you know, integration of color, of texture, of translucencies, of, you know, different ways of fabricating things and changing them around. On the moon, you're experiencing 1/6 of the gravity on Earth. So when you do step, you might go up and hike a little bit. So that's why you have these and things like that. Again, you know, back to all of these talks about nature, integrated nature. Nature doesn't have straight lines, so why should we have them there? Creating these nature-like pieces of furniture around that are reminiscent of grass or different types of plants could be very useful. Also, your personal space. How do you create privacy in an environment that may not have it? How do you, have conversations with people in an environment that is yours? Why do you have to work out with equipment that looks like it was, put together in a garage by an engineer, when you can run into something that looks and feels and smells like nature? And same thing on the outside, trying to think of like what kind of imprints do we want to put on the surface of the building that says that humans were here. Humans with feelings, with color, with all of the positive aspects of space exploration, getting closer and closer to our targets of Mars. So continuing on the space trajectory, was it like a year and a half ago? We worked on this project with the World Design Organization and the International Space Station National Laboratory. So they wanted us to design a orbital university. And it sounds crazy. University is one of the biggest, I guess, group or systems organizations you can think of, and we're thinking of putting that in space. And so having it, orbiting Earth, what does that mean for people working on the surface of the planet? So one thing that's been very relevant about our time working at IDesign. The IDesign has been up in space for about 22 years, and we've done more than 6,000 experience in biology, experience in medicine, in physics, in whatever you like. And we're learning a lot from all of that, and we're bringing a lot back. A lot of the things that we use every day actually come from experience when we're done in space. Your phone is sleeping on it, your prosthetics if you're missing a leg. Your Invisalign, all of this material, even your camera phone, all of that comes from technology that's been developed up there for typically different reasons, and then commercialized back in Earth because in the end, that's what you want to do. So what we want to do here is create a structure that allows universities all over the world to have access to microgravity labs. So here you have 3 rings. One ring is dedicated to STEM, is the space, lots of engineers, a lot of mathematicians and all that. And then one that's dedicated to humanities and the arts, and one that's dedicated to social science. So social science is extremely important for space, for future space, because right now we're going to the ISS, something goes wrong, we come back in hours. And then we're going to go to the moon, and something goes bad, you come back, 2 or 3 days later. And then we're thinking about going to Mars. That's 6 to 9 months away, right? If something goes bad, we're out, right? So, so how do we anticipate a lot of the bad stuff that's going to happen in these extreme environments? Is the kind of thing that we want to develop in this orbital university. So, one example of what a capsule would look like this is a biological biology like classroom, I guess, where they experiment a lot with growing plants and growing foods in different types of extreme environments, whether it's microgravity plus exposure to specific radiations or different types of stresses. And what that's going to help us is, one, grow food on the way to Mars or on Mars and keep our astronauts alive, but also we can bring back that technology and bring it to extreme environments on Earth, right? All of these places where nature is not really reliable to provide nutritious and fresh food to the people living in this area. So that's a segue to another project that we're doing, which is a project we're doing with NASA and the Canadian Space Agency, which is the Deep Space Food Challenge. So that's a challenge that was put together a bit less than a year ago. And we won that challenge. $25,000, thank you very much. So the brief of this project was to design a system that helps create food for astronauts that would go to Mars. So again, it's like 6 to 9 months to get there. You have to stay there a year and a half because then 6 to 9 months. So it's going to take you like 2.5 to 3 years to go to Mars and come back. That's a long time to look at the same 5 people without coming. Right? So, so we created like a system of 4 different machines. So number 1 is a bioreactor for algae, microalgae. So microalgae has been shown to protect the human body pretty effectively against cosmic radiation. So there are red microalgae, blue ones, green ones, and culturing them, in microgravity is something that's been tested before. And what you can do is, what you can do is create food from it, and I'll show you in the next slide. Another thing is creating hydroponic systems that rotate all the distribution, and we would grow microgreens out of it. So when you interview astronauts, they say, what is the one food that you miss when you come back to Earth? They always say lettuce, because the crunch, the water, the satisfaction, all of that. So our aim would be to grow this kind of satisfying food that we're missing right now in the body ISS, for example, and supporting the development. So we did a lot of experiments. So food design is so much fun. Really taking like shelf-stable materials and ingredients and dried fruits and seeds and things like this, and mixing them together and creating savory or sweet options for all of these instruments. So one fact about astronauts is that about 600 astronauts have been to space and back, and only one of them came back heavier than when they left. Everybody else weighs. And when you lose weight, aboard the ISS is not a big deal. You come back home and a little bit more. But when you lose weight on a 3-year mission, that can be a life or death situation. So we need to solve that problem. So we made like chocolate sauce, and this was really fun. So one of the machines that we created is has to do with, we were brainstorming together. It's like, what have we done since the dawn of time when it comes to food? We love grilling food because grilling food creates this grill marks, and the flavor is nice and something that you do together. But open flames in like an oxygen-rich environment is super dangerous. So we're like, okay, let's use lasers. And I kid you not, we went on Amazon and we bought this like cheapo laser etching machine, and we started etching chicken. And it's delicious.
About that project, we're clearly not scientists. We talk to a lot of scientists, we engage with them. One of our guys on our team is electrical engineer, but he did a dietary degree, so he's about the closest to this. Super. But we named these different categories, 4 different ones. Munch, which was the greens, Yum, which is the creaming machine for ganache and stuff, Snap, and or something. But anyway, the point being that if there are all these human things, everybody else gets on these competitions, and like, well, we made the proteins very good for us, and we brought the nutritional value up. And we didn't want to do that because that's not how humans think. Humans want to fall in love with it. And so we started with a story in the beginning about how we would fall in love with food a bajillion miles from planet Earth. And this is why we came up with these types of solutions. We're taking sort of modified versions of what they have access to. We really make texture rich, flavor rich. We can smell a little bit of, and it's these very human qualities, and I think that's what helped us move forward. So we'll do.
So yeah, so we just finished phase 1 of this project. We're about to do phase 2, which is prototyping, and half of it's already done. So looking forward to it. Marius, you want to talk about this? That's cool.
All right. So I am definitely not a vegetarian, but when a company calls out to me and says, hey, do you want to help us make some plant-based bacon? I'm like, bacon, yes. I want that on my resume. So it was a horribly low-paying job, but it was so much fun. The people are nice, and we get bragging rights now for doing plant-based bacon. So we designed a mold for them. As you can imagine, taking sort of I don't think, I can't really quite say what's in it, but taking something that's not meat and making it look like meat and giving it a texture that people relate to is really, really challenging. So I helped them work through this. And now, this is 8 years ago, now they keep coming back to Nonfiction for us to help them design the next level of it. And right now, we are in the middle of a project with them, taking this, which already looks pretty good, and just raising it to the next, the bar is much higher. Okay? The flavor's better, the texture's better. It's, we used computational design to make every single piece of bacon slightly different, like as that real bacon you peel off the pack store. So we're having a lot of fun dialing this in. And what was the number for them? I think you can remember better than I can.
As of last month, we saved 2 million pigs.
Yay! That's great. So yeah, the owner of Sri called us up the other day. He's like, "Hey, man, check this out. This is cool." I'm like, "What? Plant-based bacon. We've all heard that." He's like, "We've saved all these pigs." I'm like, "Cool."
All right, this is the last project we want to show you. It's a very, very cool project. So the country of Singapore called us one day. The government, they're like, "Hey, would you like to design the future of our educational system?" Right? And yeah, it's a serious project. We get to design that. So we kind of started small at first. At first, they're like, "Hey, would you help us think about the future of the classroom?" We sent like 25 renderings and like, "Oh my God, this is great. Let's make an entire school." And as of like 6 months ago, they wanted us to design an entire city. But whatever. Let's talk about the school. So, fun sad fact about schools. A lot of people who design schools also design prisons. So it makes sense. It makes total sense. So we're like, okay, not cool. So we're like, okay, so who should design a school? Is the first question we ask ourselves. Like, we have architects, we have designers, we can think of all the crazy shapes. We can think of, but like, who should design schools? Kids. So we had kids draw the school of their dreams, and they start drawing monsters. And we're like, oh my God.
What do we do?
A school that looks like a monster? What? So that's exactly what we do. So we created this monster-shaped school that, and the thing about monsters is that they live because they're monsters. So things that live, eat things, and they poop things like an organism. So when you think about a building like an organism that consumes things and excrete things, you get into very interesting things, ideas, right? There's also like a system on the inside, things that provide support that are common, things that are very active, very much like a school, right? So we divided this school into different areas that you can see here, but it all came down to like solving 5 kind of like areas in order to satisfy human autonomy. So human autonomy is a very, very big thing because right now we're not educating people to be autonomous, right? We're teaching them skills that are hard skills, social skills that are related more or less to what they want to do later in life. We don't teach you how to do taxes. We don't teach you how to buy life. We don't teach you all the things that we're going to do as humans, interpersonal relationships, mental health. So we wanted to integrate all of that into school in K through 12, right? So let's start at the top right, sustainable systems. As I said, a monster needs to eat or needs to poop. So we have to think about how sustainable systems work: resilience, adaptability, abundance, regeneration, redundancy. How do we include all of that in the way we design the school? The second one has to do with neurodiversity. So everybody's different. Everybody in this room thinks differently, learns differently, enjoys things differently, tries for different reasons, right? So we can't have one system that we impose on everybody, and whoever doesn't listen, falls back in life. So really integrating, multi-sensory experiences, sometimes with synesthesia. Synesthesia is when your senses and the way you interpret them with your brain crosses over. And so that helps, welcome more people and engage everyone to share the way they learn so it can help tomorrow. Next is opening the idea of hacking the school. So a lot of times, I'm sure it happens a lot today, they're like, don't do this, don't do this. You can do that. What if there's a school where you can do anything you like? Yeah, you want to draw on the wall? No problem. You want to hack the IT system? No problem. So really creating that openness of like, I can myself, or I can ask someone to help me do something because I wanted to do this. Right? That can be really cool. Next is borderless education. So a lot of times you have the school with the walls and you have friends and people in the same classrooms or in the same year, and then you kind of are close to them. But the world doesn't work like this before. When COVID, we learned that a lot. So how do we create connections, not only with other kids, but also with adults, with people who work in the city, with schools all over the world? How do we integrate all of that into the school? And then finally, mental health and happiness. You can be, super smart and super good at everything that you do, but if your mental health isn't there, it's not going to help you very well. So making sure that we integrate transformative technology and emotional intelligence training in everything that we do is so very important. So having the system of like 5 targets is here to support each of the kids that go to the school to express the human economy as they want. And so, there's a lot of absurdity that we are integrating to this whole thing. So thinking about the classrooms and libraries that, again, look like monsters. This one is like, for some reason, it's like holding 2 trees on the side. It's like you walk down, and Singapore is like green, it's beautiful, everywhere. And really taking advantage of that and giving a space, giving some shade to the kids to really enjoy that connection to nature and to learning. Having like fairs all the time. So one of the school systems that we are connecting there has a competition in robotics. We're actually attending there in Singapore. And having the kids to build different types of projects and then kind of be mini entrepreneurs and see how their idea can be transformed into something else, a business, whatever. And really have them collaborate on the fly because kids are like that, right? They see something interesting, they're like, oh, I want to be part of it. So really having everything open that way. Also making them responsible for understanding where things come from. If I eat something, where does it come from? What does it do to my body? Does it do good things? Does it do bad things? What does it taste like? What if I mix candies with tomatoes? What does that do? Really opening their mind to possibilities instead of closing all the giving them rules too early. And then a space for introverts. Some of us don't want to talk to people, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Different brains again want different things. So always giving the opportunities to people on the spectrum of introverts versus extroverts to find a place that works for them, and so they feel secure and again, it's funny. I don't know if you guys seen that Squid Game when I saw the show. I'm like, oh my god, this is the same thing. I've done this before. So maybe taking inspiration from MC Escher and having certain aspects of the school not making sense. There's no reason why this should be like this. There's no reason why there's a bunch of college going to be like this. But coming to a space and really living through it and not finding meaning in everything in life. Because I think there's this obsession with justifying everything. When you're a kid, you should just be a kid, right?
Yeah, there's this moment when scientists have figured out, there's this moment when kids are about around 8 years old, something like that. They're, kind of wild, crazy. They tell you, I like you, I don't like you, whatever, And somewhere around 8, like there's a cognitive change in the way their brain is growing. They start to think, and they're being told by all their, parents and teachers that this is the framework of society. This is what you do to fit in a box. And there's something beautiful about what happens before that, and something afterwards that kind of changes like your trajectory, maybe your creativity, and maybe you're accepting things rather than challenging things. And that whole slide back there with the sort of MC Escher sort of thing is like talking about turning the world talking about questioning your own reality, trying to break that moment where you're locked into this framework, these constraints, and carrying that on till you're much older, I think a lot of this project is, yeah, you can all get A's and B's and check the right boxes, but can you ask critical questions and come up with real answers that are unexpected and innovative? One of the things we want to do is we're letting the kids create their own environment, right? Let's let them build their own furniture. We have a CNC machine back at our office and we test this whole thing. It's like, can kids, create their own furniture, cut it out of wood, put it together, and build their own environment. If they want a tall table, they can have it. If they have a low table, they can have it. They can use different types of materials. We were talking about precious plastics to somebody earlier. Well, we talked about precious plastics, trying to integrate some of those recycled materials into furniture, right? We can press it, we can mold it, we can CNC cut it, and let kids create what they want. It's not only a story of autonomous story of building your own environment, it's a very conscious story of what's this material, where does it come, where is it going? Because I think we all live in a throwaway culture that we don't have to live in landfills. If you have to live with your trash, you might start to curate how it is. So anyway, we built had them look at a bunch of different materials like psyllium and extruded precious plastics, biodegradable things. We built an online website where they can actually start to put these together, kind of like container IKEA furniture. Actually, we worked with the guy who built the IKEA furniture website. He's actually Russian. He's awesome. To develop this. And then finally, I guess that's a good jumping off point, is that we try to integrate materials in a lot of things we do. That's why I started teaching sustainability and social impact at CCA. Is like I wanted to understand the problems that we're facing as a global community. I want to understand what materials we're using as industrial designers that impact the life cycle of these things. So I started teaching, but then at the same time, we started talking with Material Connection. You've probably heard of these guys. I think they might be the world's largest physical material library in the world. We built a partnership with them, and they said, we don't have a West Coast office. Would you like to be the owner of the West Coast office? So now we hold their largest material library on the West Coast of the United States. This is the first floor of our studio. So we've got several hundred, there's a few other walls. We got several hundred of their materials, and it's cool. It's really cool. You get to touch and feel these things. And it goes from like traditional polymers to processes, then goes into what they call naturals, which is all these apple-based leathers, things like that. And even some of the unexpected things. We have a foreign black plastic bottle on the wall. If you look at the description really closely, what's special about this foreign black plastic bottle is it has no carbon in black. It's only it's a carbonless black pigment. The difference is when the sorters sort the recycled material at the recycling center, there's a computer vision that shoots UV and IR beams down there. It says, oh, this is PT, this is PLA, this is this. It's something black with carbon black. This doesn't landfill. Not the stuff in their library. They figured out how these the computer vision can read it and put it in the right bin so it will stick. Anyway, we have a ton of fun with this stuff. You guys ever find yourself in San Francisco? Give us a ring, hit us up. Our office is always open, but you don't hear that from industrial design firms very often because it's all MBA. We're lucky that we have a couple floors, studios upstairs, and a little bit more open library downstairs with the phone call.
All right, this is the last slide. Thanks for hanging out with us. So, Marcus and I were professors for years at CCA in San Francisco, and also, as business owners, we get asked the same 15 questions all the time. It's really annoying. So we're like, okay, let's start a video series where we answer these 15 questions that we get asked all the time. And design for manufacturing, how much does it cost to develop design? How long does it take? What do the teams do you put together? So we started this video series called Future Future, and you can find it futurefuture.design. And it's just me and Marcus just talking about things. It's again a COVID thing. We're like, hey, there are not a lot of videos out there that are very frank about what it takes to put products in the markets. That's useful to new students. It's useful to people who want to develop their own products and have never done it before. That's also useful to people who have done it for a long time, but really not doing it right now. So yeah, it's something that we're still producing, and it's pretty popular. And now we have firms asking us to do videos for them. So we've become a video production company.
We're ending, and we're doing a bunch of videos for another company called Ronin Product Development Labs, and we're doing a video series called Supposedly. This is the perspective of engineers on how they do sustainability in these conversations. It'll be on our website soon. And we also recently got asked by Cradle to Cradle. We got asked by them to help them out with their videos because they don't have a strong video presence, which is kind of cool. And again, going back to that story of like teaching sustainability and having the material library kind of forces us in a good way to understand these really complex problems and bring it to our forefront to doing the right thing, making the right decisions. So check out futurefuture.design. I particularly like, the one that's called, what is it?
Fast, cheap, and high quality.
Fast, cheap, and high quality is by far my favorite. Because you can have two of those, you can't have all three. You can't do it. And it applies to design and it applies to boyfriends and girlfriends. What is it? Conceptual design is the highest rated one. But I think you guys probably already understand all that. But maybe there's something in there that people keep liking and clicking it. And what else? I think that's about it. There's a ton of them. They're only like anywhere between 3 and 7 minutes long. But that's some fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. By the way, thank you all again for sitting through a long presentation.
Thank you so much. What an inspirational presentation. The time is very limited, so let's have probably 2 questions for this.
I can hear you.
So you guys cover so many fields, so many materials and processes, technology. What areas are you guys excited to get into that you haven't explored yet?
Not much left.
I know.
Usually by the time we have an idea of what we want to do, we're already talking to that person, right? The space things, we reintegrated that about 2 years ago. The food thing is a year ago.
We started working on city design and transportation design in the city. You can show it here. We're just beginning those conversations. I just got back from Barcelona last week where I was at a conference, a dual conference between smart city design and frontier materials. And the smart city design was sadly yeah, it's just big data. And so, and giant boxes of computers set on the lamppost. Nobody wants to look at that. Huge opportunity for the rest of us, right? And the frontier materials was cool. It was all about graphene. I don't know if you've heard of graphene. It's built as the latest and greatest material. Strongest, thinnest, one atom fit type of material. They can what's called dope it. They can dope it to be conductive. So now we can dip our clothes in it and make them conductive, so we can control electronics with it without PCBs and flex cables and all those chips. So I think phenomena are ways got our minds and hands in a little bit of everything, but that's kind of what comes out.
So the education project that we showed you earlier, So we put some of the work, the early work is what we saw on the internet, and we gathered attention from Japan and New Zealand, and now they want us to design their education systems. That's cool.
It's funny because Japan is like, hey, we have so much free land and all the younger people are moving to the city and older people, you're 80, 90 years, you're not going to maintain the city. So they're living in the cities there to our people now. One of our clients is a multiple died. Would you like a city in a bunch of people? Just like that. It's a real thing.
Where are these cities located in Japan?
So Noto Prefecture is one of them, and the other city is going to be in Singapore tonight. Small projects.
One more question.
Yes, I really like when you guys talked about the intricate details of like space architecture, including color, sensations like taste and things like that. Would you apply, or are there any areas where you would apply those same slight touches and slight details?
Yes, so what's interesting about space is that it's a quote unquote easy extreme environment. It's so extreme because we can't even replicate space out, like it's not possible. We can do without gravity by going in a pool, you can get bombarded by a bunch of artificial radiation. But having radiation plus microgravity plus all of that is we can't do. The only way is to actually go up there. And that speculation that we have to go through helps us develop a lot of solutions for up there, knowing that whatever we develop up there comes back to us, right? So it's this like constant back and forth between ideal situations that we have here and extreme environments. And we have to think of designing for both at the same time, right? There are people who live in environments where water is not accessible. There are people who live in environments where electricity is not. And how do you design for these extreme environments is kind of the same process. And that's what's so interesting about this work. Like we have to have extremely malleable minds and really think of, oh, what is the worst case situation here? What is going to kill you first? These are actual questions that we ask ourselves because when we design a router, like nobody got, right? So it's the stories that we tell ourselves in these extreme environments make us question the way we've been doing things. But the last 150 years, we've been on the trajectory of consumption and getting things fast, cheap, and high quality, or trying to, and we've seen the consequences of it. Right? People are suffering. People are getting rich on the back of other people. Inequalities, a lot of things brushed under someone else's rug, and that needs to stop. Right? Transparency is huge. In space, you can't hide anything. Although there's probably 100,000 lost pieces of things up on NASA. But everything is accounted for because you have to, and we have to think of the way we design our things the same way. Every time we throw away something, it doesn't just disappear. Even the expression "throw away where?" Right? So as designers, as we start thinking about putting more products out there, solving more problems that we find important, what is the consequence of what we do? Right? Do we solve that with applying circular economy? Do we apply that by choosing a material over another? Do we do that by negotiating with someone who just wants to do things the way people have been doing it for so long? In the end, if you solve the business aspect of things, right? That's why I always push, conversation about the business of design. So incredibly important. If you don't have the arguments that's way for business, you will always lose. Right? In the end, sustainability of all the good intentions you may have towards the product don't weigh anything against business. And it's just a reality of things. And we can talk a little more about this, but yeah, it's this back and forth between the two of us.
Where do you think all the lost objects are going on the ISS?
I don't know.
Definitely.
Apparently not uploading some shelves now, but yeah, you've seen what the ISS looks like. Does it look like a place you want to go? It's an amazing place, right? There's so many incredible things that happen. So many innovations and so many discoveries. It was not designed by designers.
Well, we have many questions on the times. So let's give thanks to our amazing speakers.